Hello, welcome. My name is Bill Murphy. The League of Women Voters of Fresno would like you to know what's at stake when you go to the polls on Tuesday, June 3rd for the primary election. So they've asked me to moderate a forum today in which we hope to learn from the candidates their views and positions on important issues connected with the office. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. It does not endorse candidates or political parties. We're thankful to the Community Media Access Collaborative for their help in producing this forum. Our slate of candidates includes 5 people running for Fresno County Superior Court Judge. They are Stephen Smith, Jarrett Cline, Charles Mcgill, Lisa Gamoian, and Rachel Hill. Each candidate will make a 1-minute opening statement followed by questions from me. Then each candidate will have a 1 minute to answer, and a 30-second rebuttal will be allowed after that if desired. Finally, each candidate will make a 1-minute closing statement. The first to offer his opening statement today will be Stephen Smith.
Thank you, Bill. Hi, I'm Administrative Law Judge Stephen Smith, and I'm running for Fresno County Superior Court Judge. I've lived here in Fresno County for almost 50 years. I grew up at a time in this community when we didn't have to lock our doors. We often went down to the river for the day and returned home when the street lamps went on for dinner. And while our convictions and our commitments to our community have remained the same, our community has constantly changed. We need firm and compassionate judges that understand the complexities that face our community, both with its citizens and in the business community, but also who are willing to be firm and deal with Fresno's rising crime rates. I've been an administrative law judge with the state for the past 5.5 years. Prior to that, I attended school at Fresno State and worked for Pete Wilson. After graduating law school at McGill in Sacramento, I returned and operated my own practice in Fresno for 20 years before taking the bench. During that time, I tried serious cases in at least 6 different counties up and down the state, as well as numerous court appearances in over half the counties within the state and the federal courts. For the past 5.5 years, I've been applying the facts to the law as I see that in the courtrooms before me in this financial crisis, and applying reasoned justice to the decisions that have come out to the people of our community. I believe I can continue doing the same if appointed and elected to the Fresno County Superior Court. I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Jarrett Cline will now give his opening statement.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Jarrett Cline. I'm currently the Rural Crimes Prosecutor for the Fresno County District Attorney's Office. I've been doing that for the last 3 years. I've been a prosecutor for 9 years. I prosecuted felonies, misdemeanors, you name it, I prosecuted it, just about everything. I'm a former police officer. I'm currently married. I have a wife and 2 children, one that's 6 years old, one that's 7 weeks old, which makes campaigning interesting. I want your vote for Fresno County Superior Court Judge. I'm currently the only judicial candidate that has a 6-point platform on the things I'd like to see accomplished while being a judge. That is on my website at jarrettclineforjudge.com. I'm involved in the community. I'm a member of the Downtown Rotary Club for Fresno. I'm also a member of the National Latino Peace Officers Association. I'm also a member of the Fresno Farm Bureau. I would like your vote, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill, your opening statement, please.
Hello, my name is Charles Mcgill, and I've practiced law in Fresno County for the past 25 years, defending the Constitution. My late wife and I, Laura Guzman Mcgill, formed a firm of Mcgill, Guzman, Mcgill attorneys. We practiced together for the past 15 years. I lost her in December of this last year, and one of the things that she wanted me to do was do more public service than what I have been doing in my private practice. So I've thrown my hat in for this judicial race. I am the only independent candidate running in this race who's not part of the government, who's never been part of the government, always in private practice. I have 5 children, Gary, Zach, Petra, Sierra, and Matt. That is an important part of my life, and important part of the experience that I bring to the bench. I understand the things that we deal with as a community because I've been an active member of this community for the past 25 years. I'd love to have your vote on June the 3rd. So please, vote Charles Mcgill for Judge. If you have any questions about my campaign, you can go to my website at mcgillforjudge.com. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian will now give her opening statement.
Thank you, Bill. I'm Lisa Gamoian. I'm a local girl born and raised here in Fresno County. Both sides of my family, 3 generations back, we're in Fresno County as farmers. I still live on and operate the family farm with my mother. I'm a product of local schools. Fresno State, went away for 3 years to Hastings Law School and chose to come back home to practice law. I was in private practice in the civil world for 5 years, and then went to the DA's office where I've been for the last 25 years as a prosecutor. I worked my way up through the district attorney's office to chief deputy district attorney. I run all murder cases in Fresno County. I'm the one who evaluates them for filing. I assign them, I supervise them, and I also currently prosecute them. I am the only candidate who has extensive courtroom trial experience, jury trial experience. I've enjoyed my service to my community as a prosecutor, and I want to continue serving you as a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Hill, your opening statement.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Rachel Hill, and I would like to be your next Superior Court judge. I think I am the candidate that is the most qualified for that position and that will serve the community the best. I've been practicing law here in Fresno for the last 24 years. I was recruited in 1989 by one of the most esteemed firms in Fresno, where I practiced complex business civil litigation, working in the private sector. I worked in civil practice for 5 years. I took a $10,000 pay cut to pursue my passion, which was criminal justice, and I worked in the district attorney's office for over 10 years. For over 10 years, I worked in very many different assignments in the district attorney's office. I was on a number of different felony trial teams. I tried quite a lot of cases before juries, over 40 jury trials, and never lost a jury trial. I have background in the issues that matter to our community, to our businesses, and to public safety. I am the person who is willing to make the hard decisions to help stop the revolving door at the jail and help make our community a safer place. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll proceed with the questions. Jarrett Cline, what do you think are the most important qualities for a judge to possess?
Well, the qualities that I think a judge should possess is, number one, they should follow the law. You need to be fair and decisive, and I'm sure many of my fellow candidates will echo those sentiments. But you also need to be innovative. You need to think outside the box. We currently have a backlog in the courts that I believe can be solved by using several different methods, implementing newer technology, implementing different kind of courts such as veteran courts, mental health courts, and basically just using, I guess the word would be non-antiquated methods in order to bring justice to the people. I believe that these innovative methods would save taxpayers money. I believe it would give the people that are in court a fair shake and a fairer shake, because we're not going to be as compressed by time constraints. And that's why those are the actual qualities I believe that would make a good judge.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill, what are the most important qualities a judge must possess?
Thank you for that question. I was thinking about the judges that I've practiced in front of and the qualities that I admired in them. I admired the quality of Gene Gomes, who's now Justice Gomes' quick ability to assess the circumstance and his ability to remember what he'd read. I admired Frank Creed's ability to research the law like no one else could and find the answer for himself and then educate everyone on it. I enjoyed practicing in front of judges that were kind to the people that were in front of them and respected them. But most of all, I think a judge needs to be independent. And in these times, we need independence from the bench more than ever. For the last 20 years, the governors have been appointing people just from the prosecutor's office to be judges. And the reality is 85% of our judges are former prosecutors. And the reality is that doesn't serve our community well when they're all interconnected. We need independence now, and that's the independence that I intend to bring, and that's why I'm running in this race. That's why I'm the only one that's not from the government or touting my experience as a prosecutor or part of the government as what makes me a judge. I think that we all know that we want a judge who's independent and willing to make tough decisions, sometimes not going with what the government wants, but doing what the people need. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian, What are the most important qualities for a judge?
They would be the very same qualities that I most appreciate in my work in the courtroom as a prosecutor, and that is, first and foremost, decisiveness, the ability to make a decision even if it's difficult, to apply the law to the evidence, and even though someone's going to be unhappy with that decision, to actually make that decision. Secondly, the ability to control the environment. And that means the courtroom, that means the jurors, the witnesses, the attorneys who are practicing before you. And again, that's an ability that one would only have if one is in the courtroom actually practicing, which I have that ability to do. Thirdly would be provide an even playing field for all the litigants. Fairness, that's very important and should never be forgotten. Not to be influenced by any outside factors, media attention, maybe the heaviness of the calendar, who the particular attorneys are. Those should not influence the decisions of a judge.
Thank you. Rachel Hill?
I believe that all of the qualities that the other candidates have mentioned are very important qualities. I not only possess those qualities, it's not only my opinion, that's the opinion of the majority of judges in the county of Fresno who have chosen to endorse. I have the endorsement of the people that are doing that job. Actually, Justice Gomes is one of the people that does endorse me, as well as Justice Hill. In the words of Judge Wanger, who was my first boss and saw me in civil practice as well as in criminal practice, he stated and wrote that Rachel has unquestioned integrity, possesses the qualities of an independent thinker who is able to make hard decisions and do what is right, even if it is not always popular. She is industrious, totally committed to the rule of law, and respectful of the important place our courts hold as an institution of government. She is committed to public service, community service, and will devote her efforts and good judgment to the important process of judging. She is uniquely qualified to serve as a Superior Court judge. Those are the qualities that I hope to bring to the bench. I will be fair, I will be open-minded, I will be firm, I will be decisive, and I will preside over cases with integrity, and I will serve my community to the very best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Smith?
Thank you, Bill. As a sitting administrative law judge with the state of California, we've learned in training that we're going to make decisions that aren't going to be popular with folks. You're going to make a permanent enemy and a temporary friend on every case. And so we're not making our decisions to make friends. And so what you want in the judiciary is somebody who's independent, who's there prepared to be decisive and make a decision on their own without deference to who it may affect or who it may make happy or unhappy. We need judges who are compassionate, who understand the complexities of our community as well as the diverse nature of the businesses in our county, who are also willing to be firm in dealing with Fresno's rising crime rates. We need judges who help restore trust and confidence in our judicial system, and they do that by being fair, impartial, and independent, and inquisitive. And so our judges right now are doing a great job on the bench. I would be a great addition because I'm already doing the job.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill, what in your background qualifies you to be a judge? For example, what specific experience and skills would you bring to the position?
For the past 25 years I've been in private practice, I've done a lot of pro bono work. And pro bono work is when a lawyer works for nothing, and he does it for a reason. I've represented people who've had issues of religious freedom. I've received an award for that from the Pacific Justice Institute. I've represented people who've been sought to exercise their First Amendment rights, and I've represented people who've been dealt with unfairly by the education system. Those are all skill sets that I bring. I've been a pro tem judge. I've sat in a variety of different departments, traffic and juvenile hall. Those skills were learning skills that I have. But most importantly, what I bring is independence. And in this time, we need independent judges. For the past 20 years, the governor has taken the easy road and appointed mostly former prosecutors as judge. We have way too many of those. It's time for independence on the bench, not someone that's so connected that they can't be fair and impartial. The public needs to have a judge that they can trust, and what I bring to the bench is independence.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian?
What I would bring to the bench is my demonstrated commitment to public safety and my ability to take long cause, complex matters before a jury, to know the law, explain the law to a jury, argue the law to a judge, the very necessary qualities, quite honestly, in a judicial officer. I daily apply the evidence code against some of the best defense attorneys here in town in some of the most serious long cause matters that are tried in Fresno County, and I've done that throughout my entire career. I work hard, I keep very long hours, I work efficiently and effectively, and I make difficult decisions. I make decisions as to whether or not charges in murder cases will be filed, what charges will be filed. I make decisions about whether or not a particular murder case will be a death penalty case, and I've argued for imposition of the death penalty to juries in the past. I'm capable of making tough decisions. I've done that throughout my career.
Thank you. Rachel Hill?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had already answered that particular question about the qualities that I bring to the bench.
What experience and skills would you bring
I'm
to
sorry. The experience and skills that I have are that I have worked for many different entities in Fresno County. I have worked in the civil arena. I have worked for private practice. I worked at McCormick Barstow for 4 years doing complex civil litigation. I worked doing employment law. I worked at the district attorney's office for 10 years, and I did defense work. So I think I have the broadest base of experience to be able to see the perspective of litigants that come before the court from many different vantage points. I think that it's important for a judge to have that impartial and well-rounded experience and well-rounded view so that when they are making decisions, they understand that, that the people before them have come to this place from a very passionate place, and yet it is the judge's role to ensure that the proceedings are fair and that the litigants are treated fairly. I also bring to this role a broad knowledge of the law. I was recruited by the local law school. They asked me if I would be willing to teach there. I teach criminal law. I teach juvenile justice. I have taught constitutional law. I have taught legal ethics. So I bring practical experience in the many areas that affect our community, as well as the level of actual real knowledge about what the rules are and how they should be applied in the courtroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Smith?
Thank you, Bill. First off, being a lifelong Fresno County resident, I have deep and lengthy ties to the community. I'm passionate about Fresno County, its citizens, and its businesses, and I have a lengthy history serving the community, be it in youth sports, pro bono activities, other community service activities. I also ran my own law office for 20 years, was involved in my family's business, before that a local pharmacy. I did a variety of legal matters in that 20 years of my own practice, handling civil matters involving landlord-tenant, family disputes, business and corporate disputes, as well as debt collection, personal injury, and workers' comp matters. Later in my career, I began specializing in criminal defense matters. I did dozens of trials, including death penalty matters, child molest, and other very serious matters. I tried serious felonies in at least a half a dozen counties in the state, made numerous court appearances up and down the state as an attorney, but those days are behind me. The last 5.5 years as a sitting judge for the state of California, each day I'm dealing with litigants, attorneys, representatives, individuals that have been aggrieved with this economic crisis, applying the evidence code to their respective situations, writing written decisions, applying the facts to the law as it's found. And so I'm already doing the job, and I'm asking you to promote me to the Fresno County Superior Court bench.
Thank you. And Jarrett Cline, experience and skills, what do you bring to the position?
Well, first off, I'm as a former police officer. I've had experience dealing with making decisions in pressure-packed situations. In fact, a lot more pressure-packed than in a courtroom, and I'm not wooden doing it behind a pulpit. However, for the past 9 years, I've been a prosecutor, so I'm very familiar with criminal law. Prior to that, I have experience in civil law, both in insurance, both sides of the insurance law aisle. I've also had some experience in family law with things such as dependency court. So I bring a great depth of experience, and also I guess it would be level-headedness under fire, if you will. I'm also very involved in the community. As I stated earlier, I'm a member of the Downtown Rotary Club, which I actually see the person that held this office before all of us are vying for it every Monday at Rotary. So again, I'm familiar. I bring ties to the community. I bring experience under pressure, and I believe that I would make a great judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Now a new question, and we turn to Lisa Gamoian. What is the most significant challenge facing Fresno Superior Court, and how can that challenge be addressed?
I think first and foremost, the biggest challenge that the entire bench faces is that of jail overcrowding. We have 2,400 beds at the jail. 75% of the actual population that is there is pretrial. We are releasing 50 inmates a day because of overcrowding. And what that tells me with the number and the percentage of pretrial inmates in the jail, it tells me that we need to speed along the process. And a court would have those abilities. I've seen it work in Ventura County, and I've seen it work in Kings County, neighboring Kings County. And that is the judges taking control of the calendar and forcing the attorneys to be prepared. And there is Penal Code Section 859B, Penal Code Section 1050B. If there is not good cause to continue a matter, the matter must proceed. And being in the home courts daily, I see that the courts are not requiring the attorneys to show good cause why a matter should continue. These cases are continuing 8, 10 times. It takes 4 years to actually get a simple murder case to trial. The attorneys must be held accountable, and they must be prepared to proceed. And I would be a judge who could make that happen.
Thank you. Rachel Hill, what is the most significant challenge facing Superior Court, and what do we do about it?
Well, I agree with Ms. Gamoian that the most important challenge facing the criminal court right now is jail overcrowding. Her statistics are correct. 75% are awaiting some sort of disposition, and they have yet to be processed through the system. That being said, a judge can do certain things that are in addition to taking control of the courtroom. Certainly you should take control of the courtroom and ask your attorneys and require that attorneys, where it can be done, that they be prepared to proceed on any given day. However, when an attorney has 4 times the caseload assigned to them by the public defender's office, and they don't have a choice in how many cases are assigned to them, when they have 4 times the amount that they're supposed to have, and they come to court and they tell a judge that they have not yet had an opportunity to go to the jail to interview their client, they do demonstrate good cause, and the judge has no choice. If the judge pushes that and the individual is ultimately convicted, that conviction gets overturned on appeal. That wastes a lot more money, and that takes up more jail bed space. What a judge needs to do is use their role to assess the people that are coming before them, who's dangerous, who needs to be in the jail, and divert others through other programs if they're not a danger to the community, so that we're not wasting the limited jail space that we have. The judge has to be willing to make those decisions and let that decision rest on their head, and not just punt and let the jail release people indiscriminately. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Smith, biggest challenge? What do you do about it?
Well, I think there's actually two in front of the court at this juncture. I do agree that jail overcrowding is a serious issue that's taking place right now. I'm not going to badmouth the judges that are sitting and hearing those calendars. They're doing the best that they can. The reality is the judges should be controlling those courtrooms and not the attorneys or the litigants. The judges need to efficiently use their time and move these cases through the process as efficiently as they can, remembering due process rights along the way. I do agree that we need to utilize all alternative sentencing programs such as diversion, victim reconciliation offender programs, treatment programs, because low-level offenders need to have a place to go so that we create those bed spaces necessary for the mid to serious level offenders that may be out there. But even more importantly, it's the time for our bench to restore public confidence in the judiciary so that the people of this community feel a part of and feel that they're going to have a fair and impartial hearing in front of a judiciary officer who's remaining independent and not making decisions based upon who they're going to make happy or who their friends are.
Thank you. Jarrett, Cline, most significant challenge, and what do you do about it?
Well, I think the significant challenge is the overcrowding. Being in the felony courts every day, you see the effects of that. You see how slow the judicial process is. However, I think how we have to look at it is we have to be innovative about it. We currently have a very smart and talented judiciary who has access to all the laws and that we would have access to as judges, and it still doesn't solve the problem. What we need to do is look at where we can make a more efficient process while retaining people's due process rights in court, and I believe that technology can do that. Things as simple as a smartphone application. Now, I've actually spoken with a local software developer here, and he's assured me that that these kind of programs and these kind of services are indeed possible and would speed up the judicial process. So I think we're just looking at it in a different way, being innovative, thinking outside the box, and using what we have today, the technology we have available today, to make the process more efficient. And that's how I would attack the problem.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill, how would you deal with that, or what would you deal with?
You know, I realize that most of my opponents are primarily working from their background in the criminal justice system, but the court system is more than just jury trials and criminal cases. The court system deals with everyday problems of everyday people. I think the most significant problem that we've got in the courthouse now is access by the public. When your family law case takes you 2 years to get before a judge because the court's so clogged with other matters, that doesn't serve you. And the reality of it is those problems have to be addressed. It has to be addressed by a judiciary that's open to the issues that civil litigants have. I believe that right now our courts are overcrowded with government attorneys, former members of the district attorney's office, former members of just one civil law firm. I believe my opponent mentioned McCormick Barstow. You can almost attract and attach that to almost every member of our bench. The reality is we need to have independence on the judiciary. We need to have judges who are thinking outside the box, like Mr. Cline said. But you're not going to get that from government servants who are all thinking the same way. It's time for independence from the bench. That's what I bring, and I think that would solve a significant problem that we have with the court, and that is to address all of the issues, not just the criminal ones, because that's where your background's from, but the civil ones as well.
Thank you. On this next question, we'll start with Rachel Hill. Ms. Hill, do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
Well, yes, to the first part of the question, I think that they do have an obligation to do that. As members of the judiciary, I think it's very important that we be mindful of the fact that when litigants come to court and when witnesses come to court, when victims come to court, when family members come to court, and when observers come to court, that they see that what is happening before them is justice being fairly and appropriately dispensed. And I think that a judge can do that by making sure that they are respectful of the litigant's time, respectful of the witness's time, and respectful of the process, and that they fairly and objectively hear the cases. I think that a judge can do outreach. There are many programs where many of the members of our local bench do outreach, and they speak out at a lot of different functions, including Rotary and elsewhere. Also, many teach. I teach at our local law school. Many of members of the judiciary teach at our law school and elsewhere. So I do think it is an important thing for members of the judiciary to do.
Thank you. Stephen Smith?
Well, it's really important once somebody gets the opportunity and is given the privilege of being able to wear that robe and sit on that bench and decides people's fates, that they also immerse themselves in the community. It's hard to immerse yourself and still remain impartial, but it's important that the public trust their servants, that they have the best interests of the community in mind, that they're following the law and they're doing it fairly and independently for everybody. I presently, as an administrative law judge, lecture at numerous locations, be it Fresno City College, Bullard High School, Central High School, Edison, Washington Union, Hoover, McLean, as well as Roosevelt. I've also coached moot court for different high schools. I've coached youth sports, and it's important that our judges remain active in the community because I think that instills confidence in the community, in the bench.
Thank you. Jarrett Cline?
I think it's absolutely imperative that a judge reach out to the community. Without knowing what the community thinks or what the community's issues are, you don't know how you're going to make decisions on the bench, or you're not going to know what's going to be coming before you. I've been involved in, as I stated earlier, 3 different civic organizations. I've made outreach during this campaign to the Hmong community, the Lao community, the African American community. You need to make outreach to all these communities to determine each community's issues, because you're going to be seeing those issues come into court. So you have to be familiar with them. You have to know what's going on. Otherwise, you don't make judicial decisions in a vacuum. You don't have to be an activist judge, but you have to be an active judge. You have to get out and feel what the community is thinking about. And so I believe it's absolutely imperative that a judge get out into the community.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill?
You know, I look at my background and the experience I have as a private lawyer and the things that I've done for our community, like a mock trial coach for a number of years with my wife, my late wife Laura, like the pro bono work I've done. And I think that what I've seen over the last 25 years is a decay from the bench of judges who are actively members of their community. I think the reality is, since the governors usually appoint judges, and they usually appoint judges from the government or prosecutors, the reality is they don't have the contact or connection to the community when they get appointed. And after they're appointed, since no one runs against them for judge, they don't have to get out in the community and campaign like the 5 of us have had to do. I mean, Rachel's husband, John, didn't have to campaign for judge. He was appointed. It didn't give him an opportunity to connect to that community in that way. So I believe that campaigning for a race is a good thing for a judge, because then he has to get out in the community and learn his community, and that's an important thing. And he can't stop there, because we need to know who our judges are. We need to see them at our community functions. We need to know that they're part of the community, and we need to know that they care about the issues that are important to us as a community. They can't just go to the court and then leave their ivory tower to their homes, but they've got to be public servants, and that means they've got to be public servants 24/7. That's what I'm bringing.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian?
First and foremost, it certainly is important that the public understand the courts and have faith in their court system. And certainly a judge would have the responsibility, certainly all the judges I've appeared in front of, understand that responsibility, and they comport themselves accordingly. It's important that whoever is in the courtroom, the litigants, just the public who may be watching, witnesses, that everyone be treated respectfully, that the court insists that everyone understand and respect the actual dignity of the proceedings and the importance of the proceedings. What may be unimportant to one person is, I'm certain, very important to the actual litigants in the proceeding. I think it's also important that a judge lead their life by example, to live a nice, exemplary life away from the courtroom. I think it's important that we do participate in the community. I personally do. I teach adult learners how to read. I volunteer at a nonprofit animal rescue here in Fresno County, and it would be my goal to continue to do all those things.
Thank you. Mentally ill defendants pose a dilemma for judges who have to determine their mental competency, considering whether they have a rational as well as a factual understanding of the proceedings against them. Stephen Smith, what criteria can judges use to make that determination?
Well, first off, I think that our county resources dealing with folks who have mental illnesses is lacking, and I think it's deplorable. There's certainly a whole wealth of individuals who are involved in our justice system who, quite frankly, should probably not be there and who are better treated away in a private setting outside of the harshness of the criminal justice system. The mental health process in determining whether somebody's competent or not, or they're sane or not, is going to be up to the use of experts. And the court does that liberally, asking the parties to come up with experts and then appointing their own if that's not agreeable between the parties, or if they can't reach a consensus amongst the parties. The law is controlling there, and so I think that the judge is stuck relying on the declarations and testimony supported by evidence of the experts that come in and appraise a situation.
Jarrett Cline, what criteria can judges use to make the determination of competency?
And I'd like to start off by addressing, I think we have a mental health course here in Fresno County, but I think that needs to be expanded. There's an article in the Fresno Bee that discussed how psychologists are reacting to their clients going into the criminal justice system. They're saying they're almost happy when they're arrested because they finally get some mental health help. I think that's kind of an indictment on how we handle mental health issues in the criminal justice system. Steve pretty much went over what happens in a courtroom. It's an evidence-based practice based on what experts give to the court. However, I think the mental health court needs to be expanded so we can save taxpayer money. Number one, by taking these individuals out of the criminal justice system and putting them somewhere where they can actually receive treatment. They can receive the help that they need. And again, limit it to, obviously nonviolent crimes. The violent and predatory, obviously, I think should find their way through the criminal justice system and be ruled on accordingly.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill?
It is a tragedy, our mental health system in this county. And I just give an example of a client that I had. He was bipolar, and he was on medication for his bipolarism, and he would be arrested for assaulting his grandmother or stealing from her purse. And he would be brought to jail and then taken off his medication because that particular medication was too expensive. And they would give him another medication and then release him. And if anyone knows anything about mental health, they know the worst thing you can do for somebody who's a bipolar is give them medication, take them off, give them medication, take them off, give them medication, take them off. And that happened repeatedly until he killed his grandmother. That is a crime that we have to bear as a community. The reality is we need to look at our mental health system within the jail. We need to look in the mental health system of the courts. All the courts look at when they're dealing with mental health is whether the defendant recognizes who the judge is, who the bailiff is, and why he's there. We need to look at the mental health problems in our community from a much broader space. And I think the judiciary is in a position to raise awareness and talk about the issue of mental health because they see people that come before them who are mentally ill on a regular basis, and not enough is being done.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian, what's your position on this?
I think I'm misunderstanding the question because I'm not sure it's been responded to.
It has to do with mental competency. What criteria can judges use to make that determination?
For mental competency as opposed to sanity, it's a whole different issue, and 1368 of the Penal Code through 1372 talks about the criteria when and what a court is to do in any circumstance where a defense counsel raises any issue or doubt as to their client's capacity or competency to stand trial. It's not a court that determines it. It may well be a court that ultimately determines the issue if both sides waive a jury. But in fact, juries are sworn with that responsibility to determine competency, and I myself have participated in and put on competency jury trials. With respects to mental health and crimes that are committed by those who are mentally ill, everyone's referring to mental health court. It in fact is called behavioral health court. There are certain people that are appropriate for those programs. Those would not be violent offenders. A person who is mentally ill, and I suspect there are a great deal that commit crimes, very violent crimes, doesn't mean necessarily that they should get a program and not be punished or housed away from the rest of society. Victims are no less injured by those who commit crimes who happen to be mentally ill.
Thank you. Rachel Hill?
Yes, I am a proponent of the behavioral health court. The fact is there are rules that apply as to the level of offender that is going to be seen in the behavioral health court. So you won't get your violent offender that is going to be processed through the behavioral health court. That being said, Ms. Gamoian is quite right about Section 1368. That gives the criteria that a judge is supposed to use to determine whether or not somebody is competent. The problem that we have is that a lot of people are not getting adequate treatment when they're in the jail. That is changing somewhat. Sheriff Mims hired someone new to overlook the medication that people are getting, but I can tell you from experience, that judge that someone thinks is sitting in an ivory tower, that being my husband, who was a police officer for 6 years and saw a lot of people with mental health issues and now has that problem before him in the court. He has seen people come to his court. They have been found incompetent. They have been sent to a facility to be restored to competency, put back on medication. Then they come back to the jail, and when that medication is taken away from them, then they deteriorate again. That needs to stop. It's a tremendous waste of resources. It's cruel, it's ineffective, and inefficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the final question. Several local courts in rural areas have had to shut down or reduce hours of operation due to cost cutting, creating hardships for defendants and witnesses who have to travel great distances for court cases. So what can be done to contain costs in the future without causing these difficulties? And we start with Jarrett Cline.
Well, again, I believe I stated it earlier. We can update the technology of the court to something that's a little bit ahead of the 1800s. You know, you go around the courts up and down the state and you don't see the antiquated system that we currently use in Fresno County. I believe that's one area, and one of the reasons why I actually came up with the ideas as far as something seems like smartphone apps and things like that was because of the closing down the rural courthouses. I believe it's a huge waste of taxpayers' money to close down these rural courthouses because you have to have victims traveling, you have witnesses traveling, you have officers traveling. The unseen cost of closing down these courthouses is a huge burden for Fresno County. So I believe you can use technology, things like web-based cloud services, things in order to open up these courtrooms and give rural communities the same access to justice that we enjoy here in Fresno.
Thank you. Charles Mcgill, what do we do about this problem?
You know, it's funny, when I started practicing in Fresno County, I recall going out to Coalinga, to the Justice Court in Coalinga, and going to Reedley, to the Justice Court in Reedley. And the reality of it is the people that were being served in Coalinga were able to go to a courtroom within their own community. And the other reality is that most of the defendants that we deal with are in the poverty level of the community. So they're the least able to deal with this. I think that the reality that we've got now is because the state has taken over the courthouse, and they literally have, they dispense justice the way they think it's best. There's not a lot of people speaking for the people anymore, particularly when most of the servants that are serving you as judges are have been part of the government for a long time. They've forgotten who they're serving. I submit that one judge can't change it all, but the conversation needs to be opened about the fact that we need to be more concerned about the people that appear before the courts, not so much for the convenience of the courts. Having two courts in Fresno County, one civil and one criminal, may be a cost-saving matter for the courts, but it doesn't serve a county as broad and as wide as Fresno County is.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian?
Thank you. I know that it was not an easy decision for the judges to make, and that is closing the outlying courts, but budgets, what they were, they had no choice. And consequently, it has created a burden for our people who are coming from Coalinga, Mendota, to come to Fresno to hear their case, maybe hear a traffic violation, to contest a ticket. Even to pay a ticket is an ordeal. I think what we need to do to address the accessibility for these people, and that would include additionally the police officers that are coming from our small communities. I may have the entire day shift subpoenaed to testify at a prelim, which means nobody's left in Mendota or Orange Cove to actually patrol the city, and that's problematic. I think it's something that we can be creative with. I think that if we had a particular day or half a day in a particular courtroom, maybe a half a day for West Side cases, a half a day, a different day for East Side cases, we could resolve this issue. And additionally, maybe with hours at the clerk's office at a particular window, limit it to those people who are coming from the West Side, Coalinga. Those people, there's a bus that goes once a day from Coalinga, and they've got to catch it before it goes back to Coalinga all the way to Fresno. And so consequently, if we can get them serviced quicker and ensure that they'll have a certain time and place to be, I think we could facilitate accessibility.
Thank you. Rachel Hill?
I, too, am very sad about the closing of the justice courts. I had the privilege of serving as a deputy district attorney assigned to Coalinga and assigned to Selma. I also tried cases in Kerman. I've been out to Firebaugh and to Sanger. I think that it's very important that we have outreach to those communities. No individual judge can reopen those courts. However, a judge can see about asking if it's possible to implement a program such as video conferencing so that people in distant locations can actually not have to get all the way to Fresno for very simple matters. I think that innovation is very important. I agree that it's important not to subpoena every officer from a rural community to appear at a particular time and leave that community without the necessary level of law enforcement support that they have. Far from having forgotten the needs of the people by working in public service, I can tell you that I was reminded of the needs of the people throughout Fresno County by being in public service. I did indigent defense. I understood their problems and their concerns. I also, as a deputy district attorney in the rural communities, understood the needs of the people and victims in those communities. And I would try to do everything I could to see that those courts be opened again, or at least some accessibility be afforded remotely.
Thank you. And Stephen Smith?
Thank you, Bill. The courts were put into a quandary, and it was due to finances, and they made the very difficult decision of closing down those rural courts. It was a disservice, no doubt. One, in closing down easy access to those individuals that might otherwise have to commute 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes round trip to get to and from Fresno to have their matters heard. But it also ripped out from the hearts of those communities those public centers where the citizens of the community gathered to have their disputes resolved. There were employees and friends of courts. There were businesses that thrived because of those employees at those courts. So it really was a disservice. We're experiencing the same things in my agency as we're attempting to cut costs. We're reverting to more phone hearings. We're reverting to more teleconferencing. And the reality is that the judges here in Fresno County Superior Court need to petition Judge Conklin to open up these rural courts, even if it's at a day a week, a day a month, and let's get those things reopened and allow the litigants in those jurisdictions to get back to their home territory, have their matters heard locally so they don't have to incur the expenses and time of having to commute in and have justice dealt out in downtown Fresno.
Thank you. And now, each candidate will have the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement. The first is going to be from Charles Mcgill.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us all and giving us an opportunity to set out what our plans are. At this time, I'm asking you to vote, and I'm asking you to vote for Charles Mcgill for judge. And I don't take that request lightly. I think it's important that you know who your judges are. I think it's important that you understand what's behind dispensing justice. It's not who's endorsing you that's important. It's about what kind of person you're going to be. It's not who you're connected to, but how you're not connected to the community. I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, I want your vote, and I think I'm the independent candidate for judge that you truly need at this time in Fresno County. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about this race. I think we're all better people for the fact that we've got to run for judge, and for all the people we've met, we're all better for it. And this experience of running for judge has been one that I delight in. It has been a salve for a hard time in my life, and I appreciate all the people that I've met along the way, and I want to thank all of you who've supported my campaign. This grassroots campaign that I've ran has been fun because of the people that have invested their time in my campaign. It's not about the money, it's about the heart, and the heart is individuals. So I want to thank all of you that have helped me in this campaign, and particularly thank this community for being so open and warm to me and my family during this hard time of loss. I know that many of you attended Laura's funeral, and I want to thank you for that. And I know you've seen National Hardware emblazed with my name, and I want to thank all of you that have helped in that as well. I'm a real proud member of Fresno County, and I'm really proud of all the people I've met along the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Lisa Gamoian.
Thank you. All the qualities that all of the candidates claim to have, tough, decisive, fair, strong, those are in fact the characteristics I exhibit and have exhibited over the last 25 years of my career as a prosecutor in the Fresno County DA's office. I'm fair, I'm sworn with the responsibility, and will continue to take seriously the rights of defendants to make sure everyone gets a fair shake. I am tough, I'm strong, I work very long and hard, and I don't cut and run when the going gets tough or there are challenges or difficulties in a particular case. That's when I roll up my sleeves and I get the job done. I make, as I said, very, very tough decisions, whether or not to file cases. I'm constantly assessing and reassessing during jury trial my performance, my evidence, the law. Those are constant everyday matters that I practice. Additionally, as I said, I make difficult decisions. What case is going to be a death penalty case? I've argued to juries 3 death penalty cases, and I have gotten 3 death verdicts. Those are very difficult, serious matters. Others talk the talk. I actually walk the walk. I perform. And to date, I've conducted over 100 jury trials. 31 of those are murder cases, and I've gotten verdicts in each of them. 3 death penalty verdicts. I have 8 verdicts sentencing defendants to life without possibility of parole, and 18 indeterminate life sentences. I can do this job.
Thank you. Rachel Hill.
I think I'm the only candidate that brings to the table the broad, both work experience and life experience that are essential, I think, to presiding over the matters that come before the courts. Whenever litigants come to the court, be it a civil matter, be it a divorce, be it child custody issues, be it criminal law, their contract law involving their business, those are times in their lives that are critical and that are stressful. A judge needs to be respectful of that, to be willing to listen openly and fairly to all the people that come before them, and to have some frame of reference for doing that. That's something that I have. I have worked my way through school. I've had a job since my first paper route at the age of 12. I was on my own at the age of 18 and paid my way through undergraduate and through Notre Dame Law School. I have a reputation for working hard. I enjoy working hard. Beyond that, though, I have broad life experience and good judgment. I have worked as a prosecutor for 10 years, and I understand the concerns of our community regarding safety and the concerns of victims. I also have done defense work, so I understand another perspective that comes before the court. I have broad experience in civil. I have dealt with environmental regulations. I've dealt with water issues. I've dealt with contract issues, business disputes, employment disputes. I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one. I would be honored by your vote, and I would serve this county proudly and with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen Smith.
Thank you, Bill. It's an honor to be running for Fresno County Superior Court Judge. With the retirement of Judge Oliver 2 weeks before the filing deadline, it left all of us up here scrambling to put together campaigns and support, but he leaves huge shoes to fill, and I believe that I fill those the best. I bring to the bench somebody with a proven track history of over 5 decades involved here in Fresno County, applying reasoned, firm, but fair justice independently and neutrally to everybody that comes in front of me. And that's what I bring to the bench. And so, what sets me apart is I'm the local conservative candidate, the only one that has any judicial training or experience. My lawyering days, while extensive, are behind me, and I bring the track record of the last 5.5 years serving the people of the state of California, and I'd like to bring that to you. I'd appreciate your vote on June 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Jarrett Cline.
Thank you for having me. I'm the only judicial candidate that actually has a platform. I have a 6-point platform. I believe that we need innovation in the judicial system. I believe that we need to get officers out of the courtroom and out of the hallways of the court back into protecting the public. I believe that a judge should have knowledge of our agricultural industry. I've been the ag crime prosecutor for the past 3 years. I understand what it's like when a farmer loses $10,000 worth of equipment to some guy who stole $15 worth of wire. I believe we need to expand our mental health courts. I believe we should have a veterans court here in Fresno. We have one in neighboring counties. I don't know why we don't have one here. Veterans need to be given the dignity and respect that they earned by serving our country. I believe that all attorneys should be treated with respect and allowed to advocate for their clients, but you should be able to exercise control over a courtroom. And I believe that there is a truancy issue in California that needs to be addressed by things such as neighborhood courts. My endorsements range from Congressman Kevin McCarthy, Assemblywoman Connie Conway, State Senator Gene Fuller, to Campos Brothers Farming, to Senior Vice President Bo Plumley or Collier's Realty, all the way to the owner of Clovis Polycon. My endorsements reflect my breadth of experience, the fact that I put myself through law school and worked myself to where I am from the ground up, and I would like your vote for Fresno County Superior Court Judge.
Thank you all. You've been watching a forum organized by the League of Women Voters of Fresno with production assistance by the Community Media Access Collaborative of Fresno. I'm Bill Murphy. Thanks for watching.